Jung Hyun-soo slid his key card through the penthouse lock and stepped inside. The space was silent as always. He set down his black leather bag by the entrance and unbuttoned his suit jacket. Today was brutal. The interrogation in Busan ended earlier than expected, so he decided to come home instead of stopping at the office. He moved through the marble foyer, his Italian shoes making no sound against the imported stone. Everything looked untouched. The abstract paintings hung perfectly aligned on the walls. The furniture gleamed under the afternoon sun filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, but something felt off. There was a scent in the air, a warm, unexpected scent. Food. Someone was cooking. Jung's jaw tightened. Linda, his wife, usually had lunch at her firm downtown, never at home during weekdays, and she certainly never entertained guests without telling him first. Not in his private sanctuary. Not at his table. Suspicious, he moved silently toward the dining room. When he reached the archway, he stopped breathing. The custom glass table stood in the center of the room overlooking the Han River. 3 years since he married Linda, that table had been used only for formal dinners, never casual lunches. It was his space, his territory, the one place in Seoul where he controlled everything. But today the table was occupied. Linda sat facing the window. She wore a cream silk maternity blouse, her pregnant belly prominent and beautiful. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant twist. In front of her sat a plate of roasted duck and jasmine rice, expensive, thoughtfully prepared. She was laughing softly, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. Across from her sat another woman. Blonde hair falling in waves past her shoulders. Pale skin. A deep red dress that hugged her own visibly pregnant form. She held a wine glass filled with sparkling water, smiling at something Linda said with an intimacy that made Jung's blood turn to ice. Veronica Hammock. His past. His calculated mistake. His buried secret. Welcome to our channel where dark romance meets dangerous secrets. If stories of powerful men, fierce women, and deadly betrayals captivate you, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and join our family of readers who crave intensity, passion, and plot twists that leave you breathless. Let's continue Jung's story. Also pregnant. Also at his table. Also very much not supposed to exist anywhere near his current life. You were right about him, Veronica said, her voice carrying clearly across the room. He never talks about his feelings. Just makes decisions for everyone and expects us to accept them. Linda's smile faded slightly. I thought I was different. I thought he trusted me enough to tell me the truth about everything. She paused, her eyes dropping to her belly. About everyone. Jung stood frozen in the shadows of the hallway. His heart, which had remained steady even when putting a bullet in a traitor's skull 3 hours ago, now hammered against his ribs. How long had they known each other? What had Veronica told her? And why did Linda look hurt but not surprised? He stepped closer, his trained eyes scanning every detail. The way Veronica's hand trembled slightly despite her confident smile. The tension in Linda's shoulders beneath that silk blouse. The untouched food on both plates. That's when he noticed it. The third wine glass at the empty chair. The place setting positioned exactly where he always sat. They had been waiting for him. Jung's instinct screamed danger. This wasn't a social lunch. This wasn't even a confrontation between wife and mistress. This was something carefully orchestrated, deliberately staged. His mind raced through possibilities, enemies, threats, traps. Someone had brought Veronica back into his world. Someone had arranged this meeting. Someone wanted him to see this exact scene. Then it happened. His phone vibrated in his pocket, the emergency signal. Linda's eyes lifted and locked with his. She didn't look startled to see him standing there. She'd known he was watching. "Hello, husband," she said quietly, her voice carrying an edge he'd never heard before. "I believe you've already met Veronica. We have so much to discuss." Veronica turned in her chair, her blue eyes meeting his for the first time in 2 years. Fear flickered across her face, quickly replaced by something harder. Desperation. "Jung," she whispered, her hand moving protectively to her stomach. "Your uncle sent me. He said if I didn't come he'd kill my family." Her voice cracked. "He said you'd understand what that means." The room tilted. Jung's hand moved instinctively toward the gun holstered beneath his jacket as his security chief's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Sir, we have a breach." Armed hostiles outside the building. We're locking down now. Linda stood slowly, her lawyer's mind clearly already 3 steps ahead. We need to move. All of us. Together. She looked between Jung and Veronica, her expression unreadable. Because whatever game your uncle is playing, we're all pieces on his board now. Jung stared at the 2 pregnant women who represented everything he'd tried to keep separate, everything he'd sacrificed to protect, now standing together in his dining room as unknown enemies closed in around them. His carefully constructed world was collapsing. And he had exactly seconds to decide who to trust. Jung crossed the threshold into the dining room, and the atmosphere shifted like a blade cutting through silk. Linda's eyes met his first, those intelligent brown eyes that had captivated him in a Manhattan courtroom 3 years ago, when she was prosecuting white-collar criminals and he was pretending to be a legitimate businessman. Now those same eyes held something he'd never seen before, betrayal. But not shock. She'd known he was coming. Known he'd find them. Veronica's reaction was different. She flinched, her wine glass trembling in her hand, sending ripples across the Perrier inside. Her other hand flew instinctively to her swollen belly, a protective gesture Jung recognized from watching Linda do the same thing. Fear radiated from Veronica like heat, but beneath it lay something harder. Defiance. She wasn't running this time. Sit down, Jung, Linda said, her voice carrying that same controlled tone she'd used in depositions. We've been waiting for you. Waiting. Jung's voice came out quiet, deadly. The voice that made grown men confess their sins. In my home. At my table. His eyes shifted to Veronica. With her. Don't. Linda's hand slammed against the glass table, rattling the Wedgwood china. Don't you dare make this about territory right now. Not when. She stopped, reaching beneath the table to pull out a manila envelope. She threw it across the surface. Photographs spilled out like accusations. Jung's stomach dropped. Images of him with Veronica in Moscow. Outside that hotel near Red Square. Her head on his shoulder. His hand on her waist. Timestamps from 2 years ago, before Linda, before the wedding, but the dates had been altered to read 6 months ago. These arrived 3 days ago, Linda said, her voice shaking now. FedEx sent from a Kinko's in Itaewon. No return address. She pulled out more documents. Medical records with Veronica's name. Ultrasound images. A handwritten note on expensive stationery. She's coming to visit. You should meet the woman carrying your husband's first child. Jung's mind raced through possibilities like shuffling cards. His uncle. Had to be. Kim Dae-jung had access to old surveillance, to forgers who could doctor timestamps, to people who could track Veronica down in London. But why bring her here? Why expose everything now? It's not what you think, Veronica whispered, her British accent thicker with stress. Jung, I didn't want to come back. I swear on everything I didn't. Then why are you here? Jung's voice cut through her explanation. Why now? Because they have my sister. Veronica's composure cracked. Tears streamed down her face, smudging her Chanel mascara. They sent me a video of her tied up in some warehouse. They said if I didn't fly to Seoul, if I didn't make contact with Linda, they'd mail her back to our mother in pieces. The penthouse intercom crackled to life. Sir. His head of security, Min Jun, sounded tense. We have a situation. 3 vehicles, black Hyundai sedans parked across the street. Men with long-range cameras. They're not trying to hide. Jung's hand moved to his jacket, fingers brushing the Glock holstered there. Lock down the building. No one in or out. Already done, sir. But there's more. Min Jun's voice dropped. One of them held up a sign. Just 4 words. The council is watching. Linda stood, her lawyer's brain clearly processing threats and options. Your uncle's making his move, isn't he? This is how it starts. Jung looked at his pregnant wife and his pregnant ex-lover, both targets now, both carrying his children into a war he'd tried desperately to keep them out of. Outside, his uncle's men were circling like wolves. And somewhere in the shadows, Kim Dae-jung was watching his nephew's world burn. Jung moved to the window, pulling the remote-controlled blinds down with a sharp gesture. The penthouse transformed into a fortress, all natural light replaced by the cold glow of recessed LEDs. He turned back to Veronica, his voice low and controlled. Start from the beginning. How did you find Linda? Veronica's hands shook as she set down her glass. I didn't find her. I was told exactly where to find her. She pulled her iPhone from her Burberry purse, fingers trembling as she scrolled through messages. Look. Jung took the phone. A series of texts from an unknown number. Linda's schedule. Her favorite cafe in Gangnam. The boutique where she bought maternity clothes. Even the name of her obstetrician at Samsung Medical Center. 2 years ago, Veronica began, her voice barely above a whisper. Right after you ended things in Moscow, a man came to my flat in London. Cring. Older. Expensive suit. He said his name was Kim Dae-young and that he was your uncle. Jung's jaw tightened. What did he offer you? $2 million wired to a Citibank account in the Caymans. A new identity if I wanted it. All I had to do was disappear and never contact you again. Veronica's eyes filled with tears. He said if I refused, if I ever tried to reach you, my mother would have a tragic accident. My sister would disappear. He showed me surveillance photos of them. At the grocery store. At their yoga class. He knew everything. Linda had been silent, but now she stood, her prosecutor's instincts overriding her pain. And you took the money. I was terrified. Veronica's voice cracked. I didn't know who Jung really was back then. I thought he was just a wealthy businessman. When his uncle showed up with those threats, with details about my family's daily routines, I realized I'd been sleeping with someone dangerous. She looked at Jung, fresh tears spilling. 3 weeks after I took the money, I found out I was pregnant. Jung felt the words hit him like a physical blow. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was more afraid of your uncle than I was of being a single mother. Veronica pulled up more messages on her phone. I kept the baby. Moved to a different neighborhood. Changed my routine. For 2 years nothing happened. I thought maybe I was safe. Her voice broke. Then 3 months ago it started again. She showed him photos sent to her phone. Her sister Emma leaving work at a London publishing house. Her mother shopping at Whole Foods. Each image time-stamped, recent, accompanied by simple messages. We're still watching. Remember your promise. Last week they sent me a video. Veronica's hand trembled so badly Jung had to hold the phone steady. On the screen, Emma sat bound to a chair in a concrete room, terrified but unharmed. A man's voice off camera spoke in Korean. Time to come home, Miss Hammock. We have a present for Mrs. Hyun-soo. Linda moved closer, her legal mind cutting through the emotion. They wanted us to meet. Wanted Jung to find us together. This isn't about you or me, Veronica. We're just ammunition. She turned to Jung. Your uncle's staging a coup, isn't he? Making you look weak, compromised, unfit to lead. Jung's phone buzzed. A text from Minjun. Council members arriving in Seoul. Emergency meeting called for 3 days from now. Your uncle's claiming you've lost control. Linda read the message over his shoulder. He's going to use us as proof. 2 pregnant women. Your messy personal life exposed. In your world, that's a death sentence. Outside, through the gaps in the blinds, Jung could see more black sedans arriving. His uncle wasn't just watching anymore. He was surrounding them, cutting off escape routes, preparing for the final move. And Jung had 72 hours to save 3 lives that mattered more than his empire. Jung poured 3 fingers of Macallan into a crystal glass, then set it down untouched. You want the truth, Linda? The complete truth. He turned to face his wife, his voice stripped of pretense. The import-export business you think I run? It's a front. We move weapons. Russian military surplus through North Korean channels into Southeast Asia. The consulting firm pays protection money to politicians and funds operations your government would call terrorism. Linda's face went pale, but she didn't look away. How much of our marriage was real? All of it. Jung's voice cracked slightly. Meeting you was supposed to be business. Your father's judicial connections, your family's legitimacy. That was the strategy. But then you walked into that deposition wearing that gray Armani suit, and you destroyed their entire defense in 40 minutes. He moved closer. You were brilliant and terrifying, and I fell in love with you before I'd even planned to. And me. Veronica's voice cut through the moment. What was I? Practice. Jung turned to her, and for the first time, Linda saw genuine regret in her husband's eyes. Moscow, winter 2023. I was negotiating an arms deal with a Chechen supplier. You were translating for the European delegation, wearing a navy Ralph Lauren dress and drinking vodka like water. His voice softened. You made me laugh. I hadn't laughed in years. We had 3 months, Veronica continued, her voice bitter. You told me you were falling for me. That maybe you could leave the business, start over. Was any of that real? Every word. Jung's admission hung in the air. But my father was dying. The organization needed me. And I'd already been promised to Linda's family through an arrangement made years before. He looked between both women. I chose duty over you, Veronica. I chose strategy over my heart. And I've regretted it every day since. Linda stood abruptly. You don't get to romanticize your betrayals. You lied to both of us, used both of us. Minjun burst through the door holding a small black device. Sir, we found 17 of these. In the vents, behind picture frames, even in the bedroom. His face was grim. Someone's been listening to everything for at least 6 weeks. Jung's blood turned to ice. 6 weeks. Long enough to record every private conversation, every moment of vulnerability. His uncle had been building a case, gathering ammunition. We're leaving. Now. Jung moved to the closet, pulling out a go bag already packed with cash, passports and weapons. There's a safe house in Itaewon. We'll. Jung. Linda's voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. If they've been listening, they know about the safe house. He was right. His brilliant, strategic wife was absolutely right. But they couldn't stay here, trapped 40 floors above Seoul with his uncle's men circling below. We go anyway. We move fast and we. The lights cut out. Emergency generators kicked in, bathing the penthouse in red. Through the window, Jung saw the black sedans blocking both ends of the street. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Bring them both to the compound. Alone. Or we start with Veronica's sister. Minjun's radio crackled. Hostile forces in the lobby. They're coming up. Jung grabbed both women, pulling them toward the private elevator. Stay close to me. No matter what happens, stay. The elevator doors opened. 3 armed men in tactical gear stepped out, weapons raised. And Jung realized they were already too late. Jung moved before the armed men could process his speed. His Glock cleared its holster in one fluid motion, 2 shots center mass, dropping the first attacker before his finger reached the trigger. Minjun took the second man with a knife to the throat. The third raised his weapon toward Linda, and Jung put a round through his skull without hesitation. Service stairs. Now. Jung grabbed both women, pulling them toward the emergency exit. Behind them, boots thundered through the penthouse. His uncle had sent an entire team. They burst onto the stairwell, descending in controlled chaos. 40 floors. Jung kept both women between him and Minjun, weapons drawn, every sense heightened. At the 20th floor, gunfire erupted from below. Trapped. Parking garage. Level 3. Jung kicked open the door, leading them through executive offices still empty at this hour. They reached his private garage where an armored Mercedes G-Wagon waited, black and anonymous. Jung pushed both women into the back seat, Minjun taking the wheel. Tires screamed against concrete as they exploded from the garage into Seoul's afternoon traffic. Behind them, 2 black sedans gave chase. Mapo Bridge, Jung ordered. We cross the river to Yongsan. Dr. Sung will. Bullets shattered the rear window. Linda screamed. Veronica threw herself over Linda's pregnant belly, protective instinct overriding fear. Jung returned fire through the broken glass, his shots precise even at 70 kilometers per hour. One sedan swerved, crashing into a barrier. They hit Mapo Bridge at full speed, the Han River stretching wide and gray below them. The remaining sedan accelerated, pulling alongside. A gunman leaned out the passenger window. Down. Jung roared. The women dropped. But Linda wasn't fast enough. Blood bloomed across her cream silk blouse, just below her right shoulder. She gasped, hand flying to the wound, eyes wide with shock. Linda. Jung's voice cracked, something breaking inside him. He emptied his magazine into the pursuing vehicle, watching it spin out and flip over the bridge railing into the river below. I'm okay, Linda whispered, but her face had gone gray. The baby, Jung, I can feel. Drive faster, Jung commanded Minjun, his hands pressing against Linda's wound. But Linda's breathing had changed, shallow and rapid. Her hand clutched her stomach, and Jung saw the terror in her eyes he'd never seen before, not even in the courtroom battles she'd dominated. Contractions, Veronica said, her medical knowledge from prenatal classes kicking in. She's going into labor. Young, she's only 7 months. Dr. Sung's clinic materialized like salvation, a discreet building in Itaewon's medical district. The elderly physician took one look at Linda and mobilized his small staff with military efficiency. Young carried his wife inside, her blood staining his Tom Ford suit, her hand gripping his with desperate strength. "I've got her," Dr. Sung said, his calm voice cutting through Young's panic. "But she needs bed rest. Complete bed rest. Any more stress, any more movement and she'll lose the baby." Young stood outside the examination room, his hands shaking for the first time since he was a child. Veronica approached slowly, her own hand resting on her pregnant belly. "I've never seen you afraid," she said quietly. "In Moscow you walked into meetings with Russian arms dealers like you owned the world. But right now you look like you're dying." "Because I am." Young's voice was raw. If I lose that baby, Veronica, I can't." "You love her." It wasn't a question. "Really love her." "Not the way you loved me." Young met her eyes. "I loved you like a dream. Something beautiful I knew I couldn't keep. But Linda..." He stopped, searching for words. "She's my reckoning. My chance at something real. And I'm destroying her." Minjun appeared, phone in hand. "Sir, your uncle's moved up the council meeting. Tomorrow night. He's telling everyone you've gone rogue, that you're too compromised to lead." He hesitated. "He's demanding you appear. Alone." Through the door, Jung heard Linda cry out, and his world narrowed to that single sound of pain. His uncle wanted war. And Jung was about to give him one that would burn soul to ash. Are you hooked yet? If you're invested in Jung, Linda, and Veronica's survival, drop a comment below letting me know you're following this journey. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because the stakes are about to get even higher. The safe house was a modest apartment in Hongdae, deliberately unremarkable among the university district's chaos. Linda sat on the worn sofa, her shoulder bandaged, her hand resting protectively on her belly. Across the room, Veronica stood by the window, watching the street below with the paranoia of someone who'd spent 3 months being hunted. The silence between them stretched like a wound. "Does it hurt?" Veronica finally asked, not turning around. "The bullet graze or the betrayal?" Linda's voice carried an edge that could cut glass. "Because they both ache, just in different places." Veronica turned then, her blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I never wanted to come between you. I didn't even know you existed until 3 days ago. But you loved him." Linda said it as fact, not accusation. "You still do." Veronica's silence was answer enough. She moved to the adjacent chair, lowering herself carefully, one hand supporting her pregnant belly. "In Moscow he was different. Lighter somehow. He'd show up at my flat with takeout from this Georgian restaurant, and we'd eat on the floor because my furniture hadn't arrived yet." Her voice broke slightly. "He told me about growing up in Seoul, about his mother who died when he was 12. I thought I knew him." "You knew a version of him," Linda corrected, her prosecutor's mind parsing the truth. "The version he wanted you to see." She paused, wincing as the baby kicked against her wound. "I knew about his world when I married him. My father warned me. Judge Marcus Whitmore doesn't miss details. He told me Young Hyunsu was dangerous, that the Hyunsu family had connections to organized crime. But you married him anyway. I thought love could be enough. That if I was strong enough, smart enough, I could be the person who finally made him choose something other than violence." Linda's laugh was bitter. "How naive does that sound? Like some Harlequin romance where the good woman reforms the bad man." Veronica leaned forward. "It's not naive. It's hope. And hope is what gets women like us killed in worlds like his." The truth of it settled between them, heavy and undeniable. 2 intelligent women, both pregnant with the same man's children, both casualties of Jung's inability to escape his legacy. "We need to fight back," Linda said suddenly, her legal strategist brain engaging. "Jung's going into that council meeting tomorrow like a martyr. He'll sacrifice himself to save us, and then we'll both be targets for whoever takes over." Veronica straightened, something shifting in her expression. "His uncle. Kim Dae-young. I met him once in Moscow briefly. He came to observe a negotiation." She pulled out her iPhone, scrolling through old photos. "I thought he was just watching Jung's technique, but he kept stepping away to take calls. speaking in Korean. Jung got tense every time. What are you thinking? I took photos. Lots of photos in Moscow. The architecture, the food, the people. Veronica's fingers moved faster. Including some of documents I saw lying around during that negotiation. I thought they were beautiful, all those Korean characters like art. She stopped, her face paling. Linda. Look at these. Linda took the phone, her eyes scanning the images. Financial ledgers. Transfer receipts. Accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore. All bearing Kim Dae-young's signature. All dated over the past 15 years. He's been stealing, Linda whispered, her prosecutor's instincts recognizing evidence when she saw it. Millions. Maybe tens of millions from the organization. She looked up at Veronica. This is leverage. This could destroy him. It could also save Jung. Veronica's voice was quiet. But are we sure we want to? The question hung between them. Outside, Seoul hummed with nightlife, oblivious to the war being waged in shadows. Linda thought about the man she'd married, the one who'd killed 3 people without hesitation to protect her, whose hands had shaken when he carried her bleeding body into Dr. Sung's clinic. I hate him, Linda said finally. For lying. For putting us both in danger. For thinking he could control everything. She touched her belly. But this baby deserves a father. And your son deserves one too. Veronica met her eyes and something passed between them. Understanding. Alliance. The recognition that they were both trapped in Jung's world, but they didn't have to be helpless. Then we give him the ammunition, Veronica said. And we make damn sure he survives long enough to earn our forgiveness. Linda's phone buzzed. A text from Minjun. Council meeting moved to dawn. 6 hours. Jung's preparing to go alone. Both women looked at each other, then moved simultaneously toward the door. They had evidence. They had a plan. And Jung Hyun-soo was about to discover that the 2 women he'd underestimated were the only ones who could save him. Jung pushed through the safe house door at 2 in the morning, exhausted from coordinating his remaining loyal forces, and stopped dead. Linda and Veronica sat side by side at the small kitchen table, Linda's MacBook open between them, speaking in the low, intense tones of women plotting war. You're working together, he said, disbelief coloring his voice. Linda looked up, her eyes sharp despite the pain medication. We're survivors. We adapt. She turned the laptop toward him. Veronica has evidence against your uncle. Financial records. 15 years of embezzlement. Jung moved closer, scanning the documents displayed on screen. Wire transfers to shell corporations. Property purchases under false names. His uncle had been bleeding the organization dry while preaching loyalty and tradition. Where did you get these? Moscow. I photographed them without knowing what they were. Veronica's voice was steady now, stronger than Jung had ever heard it. Your uncle got sloppy around me because he thought I was just the translator's pretty assistant. Men always underestimate women who smile. Jung felt something shift in his chest. These 2 women, one he'd married for strategy, one he'd loved and abandoned, had done in hours what his intelligence network couldn't accomplish in years. This changes everything, he said. With this evidence I can. We have conditions, Linda interrupted, her prosecutor's tone brooking no argument. No more lies. Ever. About anything. We need to know every threat, every enemy, every secret you've buried. Agreed. Both children will be acknowledged. Publicly. No shame, no hiding. If you survive tomorrow, you become a father to both of them or you lose access to both of them. Jung swallowed hard. Agreed. Veronica stood, moving to face him directly. And I want the men who threaten my family. Not arrested. Not bought off. Eliminated. The word hung in the air like a blade. You taught me that some problems can't be negotiated away. You want my help saving your empire? Then help me destroy the people who made me feel helpless. Jung saw it then, the transformation. Veronica wasn't the soft translator from Moscow anymore. She'd been forged in fire, and what emerged was something harder, more dangerous. Something that reminded him uncomfortably of himself. I'll give you their names, he promised. Their locations. Everything. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Minjun entered, his face ashen, carrying a large cardboard box marked with Jung's uncle's personal seal. Sir, this was left at the clinic. Addressed to Miss Hammock. Veronica's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, a young woman's blazer. Burberry, expensive, stained with blood. A British passport. And a Polaroid photograph showing Emma Hammock, Veronica's sister, tied to a chair, her face swollen and bruised. The note was simple. Bring Veronica to the Hyunsu compound for the council meeting at dawn. Come alone or Emma's mother receives the next package. You have 4 hours. Veronica's legs gave out. Linda caught her, both pregnant women holding each other up in shared horror. Jung watched his uncle's cruelty unfold, saw Veronica's spirit threatening to break, and felt rage like he'd never known. He wants me broken, Veronica whispered. Wants me to walk in there terrified, helpless, proof that Jung can't protect anyone. Linda's voice cut through the despair. Then we give him the opposite. We walk in there as his worst nightmare. She looked at Jung. All 3 of us. Together. With evidence that destroys him. Linda, you can't. You're injured, the baby. My daughter will know her mother fought. Linda's eyes blazed with the same fire that had made her a legendary prosecutor. And Veronica's son will know his mother refused to be a victim. Jung looked between them, his wife and his former lover, both pregnant with his children, both choosing to walk into hell rather than surrender. They were offering him something he'd never had. Genuine partnership. Trust earned through shared danger. Dawn breaks in 3 hours, Minjun said quietly. The compound will be fortified. 30 council members. Your uncle's personal guard. Linda pulled up a blueprint on her laptop. Then we'd better have a plan. Outside, Seoul prepared for sunrise. Inside the safe house, 3 people who'd been enemies hours ago became something far more dangerous. They became family. Dawn broke over the Hyunsu compound like a blade. Sharp, cold, unforgiving. The traditional Korean estate sprawled across 3 acres in Gangnam, its curved tile roofs and stone walls hiding generations of violence beneath aesthetic beauty. Jung's grandfather had built it with blood money. His father had died within its walls. Now Jung was bringing 2 pregnant women into the Viper's nest. The Mercedes stopped at the main gate. 30 black sedans lined the circular drive. The council had assembled. Jung helped Linda out first, her arm in a sling but her head high, every inch the federal prosecutor she'd once been. Veronica emerged next, wearing a crimson Dior dress that matched her lipstick, looking like she was attending a cocktail party rather than an execution. You're sure about the wire? Jung whispered to Veronica. She touched the delicate gold necklace at her throat, a gift from Linda, purchased an hour ago at a 24-hour jewelry store, concealing a military-grade microphone. Broadcasting to 6 allied organizations across Seoul. Everything your uncle says goes live. They walked into the main hall together and the assembled crime lords fell silent. 30 men in expensive suits, representing weapons trafficking, drug routes, political corruption spanning from Busan to the DMZ. They stared at Jung flanked by 2 visibly pregnant women, and Jung saw the calculation in their eyes. Weakness. Compromise. Exactly what his uncle wanted them to see. Kim Dae-young sat at the head of the table in Jung's father's chair, wearing traditional hanbok robes like an emperor. He smiled, cruel and satisfied. Nephew. You brought gifts to your own funeral. How thoughtful. I brought evidence, Jung replied, nodding to Minjun. Tablets were distributed around the table displaying Veronica's photographs. Financial records. Transfer receipts. 15 years of theft. The room exploded. Council members shouted, comparing documents, verifying account numbers. Kim Dae-young's smile faltered. Lies, he snarled. Fabrications by this desperate boy and his whores. The numbers match our organizational ledgers, interrupted Park Jin-ho, the eldest council member. Down to the cent, Kim-san, these transactions bear your personal signature. Jung pressed his advantage. My uncle hasn't just stolen from us. He's been selling our shipping routes to the Yakuza. Trading Korean sovereignty for personal profit. Kim Dae-young stood, fury replacing calculation. You want to talk about betrayal? He gestured sharply. 2 guards dragged in a large monitor, its screen flickering to life. Judge Marcus Whitmore appeared, bound and gagged in what looked like a warehouse, a gun pressed to his temple. Linda's sharp intake of breath cut through the room. And as for Miss Hammock's family, Kim Dae-young's smile returned, poisonous. They're already dead. The sister in London, the mother in Surrey. Both eliminated 3 hours ago. Veronica's face drained of color, but she didn't make a sound. Linda's hand found hers, squeezing tight. So here are my terms, Kim Dae-young announced to the room. Young commits suicide to restore his family's honor. His women become property of the organization, distributed as I see fit. Or Judge Whitmore dies on camera, and the Americans bring federal investigations that destroy us all. Young reached slowly for the gun at his waist. The room tensed. His fingers closed around the Glock's grip. Uncle, he said quietly. You made one mistake. And what's that? You assumed these women needed my protection. Young smiled, and it was his father's smile, the one that preceded bloodshed. Linda. Linda touched her iPhone. A signal. Nothing seemed to happen. Then Kim Dae-young's phone buzzed. And every council member's phone. Simultaneous alerts from allied organizations across Asia. The triads in Hong Kong, the Russians in Vladivostok, even the Yakuza bosses Kim Dae-young thought were his allies. What have you done? Kim Dae-young's voice cracked. Veronica stepped forward, touching her necklace. Everything you said just went live. Every confession. Every threat. Every admission of working with the Yakuza. Her voice was steady, lethal. You're not just a thief, Kim-san. You're a traitor. And in this world, that's a death sentence. The compound's walls exploded inward. Young's loyal forces, 50 men he'd positioned throughout the night, stormed through every entrance. The council members dove for cover as gunfire erupted, loyalists versus traitors, the compound transforming into a battlefield. Young grabbed both women, pulling them toward the ancestral shrine at the compound's heart. Get to the safe room. Now. But Kim Dae-young was faster. He appeared in their path, gun raised, aimed directly at Linda's pregnant belly. If I die today, he hissed, your legacy dies with me. Young's world narrowed to that single moment. His uncle's finger on the trigger, Linda's terrified eyes, the child he might never meet. Then Veronica moved. Veronica moved with a speed that defied her pregnancy, her hand flashing to the concealed blade strapped to her thigh beneath the Dior dress. A gift from Young years ago in Moscow that she'd never stopped carrying. The knife caught Kim Dae-young's wrist before he could fire, slicing deep through tendon and bone. His gun clattered to the marble floor. Young didn't hesitate. He drove his uncle backward, away from the women, into the chaos of the compound as gunfire erupted around them. Minjun appeared at Linda and Veronica's side, pulling them toward the secure room Young had designated, the old tea house where his mother used to pray. Get them out. Young roared, but Linda was already moving, her injured shoulder forgotten, her prosecutor's brain shifting into tactical mode. Inside the tea house, Linda commandeered Minjun's radio. All units, this is Linda Whitmore-hyun. Target priority. Northeast warehouse, that's where they're holding Judge Whitmore. Team 3, flank from the riverside. Team 1, secure the council members. We need them alive as witnesses. Minjun stared at her. Ma'am, I should coordinate this operation because I spent 5 years prosecuting organized crime and I know exactly how these organizations fall apart. Her voice cut through the battle sounds outside. Tao, move. Veronica grabbed a discarded weapon from a fallen guard, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency, another skill from her Moscow days. I'm going after the video feed operator. If he destroys that footage of my family alive. Second floor, East Wing. Linda said, reading the compound blueprint on Minjun's tablet. But Veronica. I know. Veronica's hand rested on her belly. Stay alive for him. I will. Outside, Young fought through his uncle's personal guard, 6 men loyal to Kim Dae-young since childhood. His movements were economical, brutal, each strike designed to disable and move forward. He had one target, the ancestral shrine at the compound's heart, where he knew his uncle would retreat. The shrine doors hung open, incense smoke curling through afternoon light. Kim Dae-young stood before their grandfather's altar, blood dripping from his wounded wrist, his face twisted with decades of resentment. Your father promised me, he hissed. I was his right hand for 30 years. I eliminated his enemies, I built his empire, and he promised me leadership when he died. Kim Dae-young's voice broke. But then he had a son. And suddenly blood mattered more than loyalty. Young circled slowly, hands empty, reading his uncle's movements. So you've been planning this since I was born. 30 years of patience. 30 years of watching an unworthy child inherit what I earned. Kim Dae-young lunged, producing a ceremonial blade from the altar. You were never meant to lead. You were a placeholder. A mistake. The fight was vicious and personal. No guns, no distance, just two men and generations of buried rage. Young felt the blade slice across his ribs hot and deep. He grabbed his uncle's throat, driving him back against the altar. Kim Dae-young's knife found Young's abdomen, twisting, seeking vital organs. Young's vision blurred, but his hands found the prayer beads hanging from his grandfather's portrait. The same beads his father had worn the day he died. He wrapped them around his uncle's neck and pulled. Kim Dae-young's eyes bulged. His hands clawed at Young's face, drawing blood. But Young held on, watching the life drain from the man who'd orchestrated everything, who'd turned the women Young loved into weapons, who'd burned soul to settle a 30-year grudge. When his uncle finally went limp, Young collapsed. He heard Minjun shouting through the radio. Heard Veronica's voice. Triumphant, she'd secured the video feed. Emma was confirmed alive. Heard Linda coordinating Judge Whitmore's rescue. Then he heard Linda scream. Young crawled toward the tea house, his blood painting the courtyard stones. Through failing vision he saw Linda doubled over, Minjun catching her. Water and blood mixed on the floor beneath her. The baby, Linda gasped. Young, the baby's coming. Dr. Sung materialized, his emergency team mobilizing. Veronica appeared, supporting Linda's other side, her own face pale with stress. Both women were rushed toward waiting medical vehicles, and Young watched from the ground as everything he'd fought for hung in the balance. His uncle dead. His father's legacy shattered. And two women carrying his children racing toward an uncertain survival. Minjun's face appeared above him. Sir, stay with me. The ambulance. But Young's eyes were on the vehicles speeding away, carrying Linda and Veronica toward hospitals, toward emergency surgeries, toward outcomes he couldn't control with violence or strategy or any of the tools that had defined his life. For the first time since he was 12 years old, Young Hyun-soo prayed. Then darkness claimed him and he knew nothing more. Young's eyes opened to sterile white ceiling tiles and the antiseptic smell of a private hospital. His body felt like it had been reconstructed from broken pieces, which, according to the machines beeping around him, wasn't far from the truth. 3 cracked ribs. A punctured lung. 14 stitches across his abdomen where his uncle's blade had found its mark. But he was alive. The sound reached him before the sight. A soft cooing, delicate and new. Young turned his head and his breath caught. Linda sat in the chair beside his bed, her natural hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a simple gray Lululemon sweater. In her arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, a tiny face scrunched in sleep. His daughter. Their daughter. Across the room, Veronica sat on the small sofa, cradling a blue bundle, her blonde hair pulled back, her face softer than Young had ever seen it. His son. Their son. Both women. Both children. All alive. You've been out for 3 weeks, Linda said quietly, not looking up from the baby. Emergency surgery. Dr. Sung said you were lucky. Your uncle's knife missed your heart by 2 centimeters. Her voice carried an edge. Of course, luck implies you didn't deliberately position yourself to take that blade meant for Veronica. Young tried to speak but his throat was raw. Veronica stood, bringing him water, holding the straw to his lips. Over her shoulder he could see his son's face, impossibly small, achingly perfect. We've made some decisions, Veronica said, settling back with the baby. While you were busy dying, Linda and I had plenty of time to talk. Linda finally met his eyes, and Young saw something he'd never seen before in his brilliant wife's face. Peace mixed with finality. I'm divorcing you. Wiggly. The papers are already filed. She held up a hand before he could protest. But I'm staying in Seoul. Our daughter, Mi-sun, we named her by the way, will know her father. And I'll help you reorganize the legitimate portions of your business. The shipping, the real estate, the imports that don't involve weapons. I'm staying too, Veronica added. Your son James Hyun-soo will be raised here. With full acknowledgement as your heir. The council has already recognized him. She paused. What's left of the council anyway? Young processed this, his mind still foggy. My uncle. Dead, Linda confirmed. You strangled him in the shrine while half your organization watched. Very dramatic. Very effective. Her tone was clinical prosecutorial. The compound burned. Judge Whitmore was rescued. Thank you for that, by the way. And Kim Dae-young's allies either surrendered or fled to Japan. Emma. Veronica's voice broke slightly. Hi, sister. Young managed a weak smile. Alive. Your mother too. My uncle lied. They were never in danger, he just needed you broken. He coughed, pain lancing through his ribs. Minjun had them extracted to a safe house in London before we even entered the compound. Veronica's tears fell freely then, relief washing over her face. Linda reached across, squeezing her hand. A gesture of solidarity that spoke of long conversations, shared fears, and an alliance Young was only beginning to understand. We've become friends, Linda explained, seeing his confusion. Partners. Co-parents. Whatever you want to call two women raising children by the same emotionally damaged mafia boss. She stood, bringing Mi-sun closer. Your daughter deserves a father who chooses her over violence. Your son deserves the same. So here's the deal, Jung Hyun-soo. You dismantle the weapons trade, the drug routes, everything that puts these children at risk. You build something legitimate. Something they can inherit without shame. And if I refuse? Then you lose access to both of them, Veronica said simply. Linda and I will raise them together. They'll know who you are, what you did, and why you weren't worth keeping. Jung looked between the two women who'd survived his world, who'd been hunted and shot at and threatened, who'd refused to be victims even when he'd tried to sacrifice himself to save them. They'd formed something he'd never believed possible. A family built not on his terms but on truth. Can I hold them? He asked, his voice breaking. Linda placed Mi-sun carefully in his right arm. Veronica positioned James in his left. The weight of them, warm and alive and impossibly fragile, broke something in Jung's chest that violence had never touched. I'll build something better, he whispered, looking at his children's sleeping faces. I swear it. I'll be worthy of this. You have a lifetime to prove it, Linda said, but her hand rested gently on his shoulder. We're not going anywhere. Through the hospital window, Seoul stretched out below them. A city Jung had once tried to conquer through fear, now holding everything that truly mattered. His empire was smaller. His power diminished. His reputation as the ghost of Seoul, already fading into legend. But in this room, surrounded by two women who refused to let him hide from himself, holding two children who represented every chance at redemption he'd ever need, Jung Hyun-soo finally understood what his father never had. Some legacies are worth dying for. But the best ones are worth living for. And Jung intended to spend every day earning his. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey through love, betrayal, and redemption. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more dark romance tales that explore the complexity of love in dangerous worlds. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from readers across the globe. And don't go anywhere. My next video features another story where passion collides with danger in ways you won't see coming. The title is already up on your screen. Click it now because you won't want to miss what happens when a woman discovers her perfect husband has been living a double life. See you there.